You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hello, everyone. Michael Renfro here. I'm the host of 15 Minutes, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers on what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, where we deliver tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives as well as maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure that you are getting the optimum ROI, your firm truly needs to have the best and definitely the better content than your competition at Gladiator. One of the things we do is use artificial intelligence along with machine learning and now over a century of combined experience to make sure that content is better and that you're outperforming your competition. To learn more, please go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com. That is simply gladiatorlawmarketing.com. A bunch of three-letter sequences there. And if you would like to get a free consultation, again, you can go to the website. We will do that for you. And we will actually take a good look, hard analysis at your current situation. And with that said, today we have Brocton Skeen. Brocton, I hope I am pronouncing the last name correctly.
Spot on.
Spot on. And he is with the Skeen Firm. And all I can tell you is we're about to have a very interesting conversation because I did this intro at the beginning and we just started talking and I never stopped the record button. So you folks will enjoy.
You know, technology is beautiful, right?
It is.
Two years through a pandemic, and it was like, I think everybody, if you had $1 for every time we've heard, hold on, I can't hear you, or you're on mute. But
at the same time, collectively, I think at the same time, we also gained a greater knowledge of what technology can do for us when you actually run it correctly. And what we also found out too is most of the time, and I don't mean this in any harm to what happened now, but most of the time there's a small user error that we just didn't miss. And when we, look at it, it usually is fixable. But obviously that is not all the time. I actually have deal in a lot of different SaaS, PaaS and IaaS. Which is, I don't know if you know what all those acronyms are, but software as a service, platform as a service, and then infrastructure as a service. So, the one thing that you always have to remember is it comes down to how good the coder was behind the meat and potatoes. And if they're good, then they're going to continue to make it better. And because I've built SaaS and you cannot think of everything when you launch and you're amazed at like every single month. You're like, why didn't I think of this in the beginning? So,
but that's every business though,
exactly.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
With one goal,
right? And then you realize how many more things you can do, particularly if you do have a good coder in your team, or at least maybe a couple of them, then you can, really, quite frankly, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, I guess I'd never thought of it like that, but it's true though. I mean, but every business is it's like every time a new problem comes up, there are actually 4 or 5 problems that are going to fall off of it that you just don't expect. And then they just keep growing. But that
grows your business.
My end. Yeah, exactly. It can be a bad way to look at it because you don't want to say like, oh, hey, I hope people have a billion other problems. But usually where there's one, there's another one behind it.
I always
solving them is solving them is more important than just saying, hey, they exist, in my opinion.
And the funny thing is, every time my wife and I mention her only because we talk the most. I work from home and she works from home, so we'll sit there and have a discussion about it. And it's funny because probably dating back to by the time I was 25, I would say anytime I read a rule that I didn't understand or a policy that I didn't understand with a company, I look at them like, that's because they had to write this. Something happened that they're like, I don't want to deal with this again. I'm going to outline it. It'll be in the terms. And if it goes that far, then we'll have litigation, but we will not go down this road again.
The warnings are always one of the best too. It's like any warning on anything, you're like, who thought that was a good idea? I don't know how many times I do that. And it was like,
but somebody did. Somebody was like, I'm going to take this thing and fly it off of that roof and see if I can catch it in my glove. Okay, man.
Or the I think it's inside of Yeti coolers, there's a giant yellow "Don't let your kids sit in this" sign. And
which
you know
means
that because they
how
have
many
those air
kids?
gaskets and
They
everything
didn't
else,
do that
someone
because
got
of one
trapped
kid
in.
either. They didn't do that because of
No.
one kid. You have to wonder how many kids got trapped in the cooler.
Yeah, and it yeah, but no, technologies, and it's funny because everything I run at the firm is on a Mac platform, so some
Mhm.
sort of iOS. And I think the problem is my AirPods just it's like hyperstimulation when I open the case because
I'm the
it'll
same
want to
way.
connect to one of two phones
Yeah,
or the Mac. You're just like, okay, hold on, yeah, I'm melting down and
I can't show you,
con-
but there's a MacBook. There's a 13 MacBook Pro M1 sitting here. I'm on an iMac. What is it?
gotcha.
21 and a half. And then I've got
Yeah,
a 15-inch MacBook Pro that is my workhorse. And so the iMac is just work. The MacBook, the small, the M1 is just projects and other things that I do. And then, quite frankly, everything ties into that one. But I'm like you, when I open something up, between my watch and my earpods and anything else that wants to connect or is alarmed, it's like,
I
hey,
say
man, you're moving everywhere.
stuff's happening. Please stop.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
no, again. I think it goes back to the technology's been great, but it's also frustrating. I think the biggest
Oh, it
frustration I've
absolutely
had
can be.
with any of the adoption, it's been awesome to see courts transform a little bit,
Right.
especially
They
in
needed to.
Pennsylvania where I'm at, because it was. I jokingly say if William Penn didn't do it, we're not going to do it. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
still operating like it's the 1600s at times. But
I grew up in
it,
South Carolina, brother. So you can imagine. I grew up in one of the original 13.
yeah,
My entire life was
yeah.
spent in the original 13: Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So
Oh
until I was
wow, yeah.
46, I was in what they literally call the Bible Belt, right? Like that is.
No,
So
that's
I get
true.
it, man.
And but it was, the only thing that hasn't really adopted well, I don't think, is they're so used to doing calls in court
Right.
that everyone just shows up, and now they want you to get on the platform and stay logged in all day. And you're like, well, the notice said 12:30. Does that mean maybe around 12:30? Just show up at 9, hope for the best. So that's been frustrating because it was like we could be much more efficient, but on their
here's
end too, just stack in the queue, they'll deal with
here's
it
an
and chew
olive
through.
here's an olive branch that I see coming. And what I mean by that is, I'm 50. You look to be like maybe in your late 30s, I'm guessing. Maybe okay. So the nice thing that you have ahead of you, and what I mean by that is really, anybody who's 15, 20 years younger than me, or hell, even 10, will see more of those changes implemented in their daily lives. And I would bet my weekly paycheck that within 15 years, by the time you reach 50, right, the courts will be completely, because here's what's beautiful. All the ones that are keeping it from happening will die. They will die.
Yeah.
They will be gone. And the new
Yeah.
blood will be like, I'm not doing it like this anymore. We know that we are more efficient. We are more cost effective, right?
Yeah.
You can knock out more cases if you use Zoom technology in a day, guaranteed by a minimum of 20%, 25%, which means at worst case scenario, that means you're saving how much in paying that judge for that day as well, getting more work done and more efficient. And
Absolutely.
on top of that, too, Brockton, the best part about it is you're not nearly as tired after a Zoom day as you are having to go from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom for the judge and the attorney
Well,
and everybody in between.
I say we cover multiple counties and have offices in different places. So
Right.
it's,
That would make
firm
it
wise,
so
you just
much
kind
easier.
of, you pinball everywhere and you're like, oh, well, I need to be here. We need to have coverage.
But if you just have a solid internet connection, then you're everywhere you need to be on time. In fact, you and I both know with technology now, because you can mute and take your camera off in one place, but still be attending it and seeing everything that's going on, you can actually have multiple meetings and it doesn't interfere. So if you truly have, and I wouldn't do more than 2 because you don't want to, but we learned how to do that back in the 90s when PIP became the thing for everybody to have, where you're watching 2 programs. So if you can keep an eye on 2 things, particularly, let's say that it's not a case, but you're just having a meeting, with two people. Obviously, if it's a court case, I'm not saying you'd want to try to do two court cases.
No.
But if you had to log in and be like, look, this case is still going on, I'm going to have to do something. You have that ability as well, where you don't have to worry about running or getting a paralegal or somebody else to do it for you.
Or just the random coverage with various other attorneys who don't know the file, haven't worked the case. Because I know from experience of serving as local counsel, that's the time that you get tripped up by the judge, because the attorney says, oh yeah, it'll be simple. Here's what should go on. And the judge wants to know more. You don't know more. And then you get roughed up a little bit, and you're sent back with a message to the other counsel. And then they're like, well, why did they ask that? Like, I'm not the judge. I don't know. Right. Don't shoot the messenger on either side, please.
Yeah, please.
Like, I'm just here to help everyone, and I don't know what's happening. So, but yeah, I think you're right on. I think you're going to see the same thing with law firm ownership. Like, looking at what the most recent ABA vote was, and they were like, well, it's a protection for lawyers. And it was like, no, is it insulation to protect inflated billing practices, or is it actual protection for lawyers? Because at the end of the day, my partner and I have this conversation every now and then. It's like, I've never looked at it as just the traditional law firm model. Hey, let's show up, let's bill, do all these.
Right. No, I got that from your answers.
Do all of the standard things. It was like, we're business owners. We own a business. Our service is providing legal advice. So it's a backwards look at it instead of, oh, I'm a lawyer. It
is a backwards, but I'll tell you this, more and more folks, particularly you millennials, and I don't mean that in a bad way, are really starting to see, hey, if I am a lawyer and I'm also the one that's running the company, then I have to separate, because this guy is doing for this guy, but this guy cannot listen to this guy.
And it's tough at first, because training wise, and a lot of law school teaches you to just straight down rabbit holes all the time. Well, if you do that, you're going to start being inefficient in a lot of ways, because you're going to spend a lot of time you may not need to spend. And it's getting, I think it was like, for me at least, it was, how uncomfortable is it to say, I'm never going to find the perfect answer. I can give advice and we can adjust on the fly as things move. But at the end of the day, it was like, you've still got to be a business owner. If you're spending too much time on something, that's at a certain point, you can't just keep billing the client. It makes no sense. Like, they're going to fire you immediately. You're like, oh, hey, I needed 8 hours of research, but I was productive for 4 of it. Okay, because the last 4 kept telling me the same thing, but I thought there might be something out there.
That is part of what true research is going to have repetitiveness and redundancy, due to the fact that you typically, if you're a good researcher, you're going to use maybe 3, 4, maybe even more different sources, right? And obviously there's going to be many things that each source probably sees the same way, but then you'll get those little nuggets. So like you say, you might only actually had 4 hours of production, but that 4 hours of production was spread out over the 8 hours of time of getting each little nugget from each source and doing what you needed to do in your due diligence.
Absolutely. But I think it's like that balance of, what does that look like?
Right.
As your firm continues to grow, because
when you're the business owner versus just an attorney at the firm.
Yeah, early stage, that was great, because it's like when I started from my house on a computer, I laughed. It was like I dumb lucked into starting everything virtually, because it made sense to me. Like, why get an office?
Right.
I work with businesses and do estate planning. Where are business owners and people that want to do estate planning?
They're going to have an easier
time to be more comfortable at their office, virtually, or at their home. It was like, I'll travel to you. Don't come to me. How many attorneys, and I've thought about this for the past 4 years, like, how many people miss out on opportunities because they set office hours 9 to 5?
Stick to them religiously.
You want to have someone try to come into that. Well, now they've got to take time away
out
from
of their business day,
out of their life.
Many times the exact same time that they're working.
Yeah. And it was like, it just didn't seem to make sense from the get-go. If you're going to serve people, and at the end of the day, that's what lawyers do, is it's a service industry. So it was like, if you're going to serve people, why not make it easier on them? That should always be the end goal. How do we add value, and how do we make it easy on them to get the access and go?
We're getting ready to start recording here, because we need to be talking about all this. I'm even going to tell the guys, go back and get some of our conversation before we started.
Okay.
because it's good stuff. But it goes right along with what your I'm assuming it's kind of your mission statement, if you will, for your clients to leave, saying something along the lines of, I've never experienced working with attorney. I didn't know working with attorney could be so easy or so pleasant or whatever it is. And that to me goes with similarly to our approach. And I'll just say it real quick. Like, we deal with only attorneys as Gladiator Law Marketing, right? That's all we deal with is attorneys. And one of the first things we try to tell them, because we deal with everything from firms that have 30 attorneys, and we're dealing with a marketing director who has literally not got a degree in law, right? Or we're dealing with the solo practitioner, or maybe a couple of partners who are wearing both hats. They're both the attorney and fight for those cases, but at the same time, they're trying to grow a business and bring leads in for themselves. And I always tell them, like, you really have to learn to separate your roles and understand that this isn't just wearing two hats. You have to wear one hat at a time. And if you wear both at the same time, it will become convoluted, number one, and you will end up making poor decisions because you're making them based on what the lawyer thinks rather than the businessman who is trying to make, business savvy decisions.
And that's true. I think, I don't know where I read it, but someone one time really broke it down well. And it was like working on your business as opposed to in your business. And it was like, when you're practicing and doing the legal work, you're working in your business, but you have to work on your business to keep the pipeline full, to continue to grow, to get any sort of accelerated growth. So you're looking at, I remember early on, I think I sat down, it was like 20% of my week needs to be, how do I grow the business?
Right. Leaving that 80% to work in the business.
Leave 80% for work time on it. And it was like, some of that obviously morphs and changes as the firm grows, because there's a certain amount of, you've got to go get more. And then you're like, okay, is it time to hire? What does hiring look like?
Right.
And we're right at that cusp now, but it's, it was surprising to me, because you sit there and you're like, well, I did, got a website out. I've done everything that it says to do to start getting clients. Where are the clients?
Right.
And eventually you're just like, I got to go get them. It's like, it's hide and seek. They're out there hiding. You just got to go seek them.
They're there. You just got to find them. And one thing I'll say is, if your business continues to grow healthily, which I'm sure it's what you want, eventually that 20% will turn into 100%, and you will no longer be an attorney. You will still be an attorney and probably keep the credentials and give advice to friends and the guys that you've hired and the girls that you've hired, right? Depending on whoever comes in. But the reality is, I have, she's one of my favorite clients. She's a female, and she does divorce for men, right? So she's a female that fights for only men, and that's her niche. But she no longer really does the actual fighting anymore. She has built that image, built that name and that brand, and now has multiple attorneys that work the cases, but she is now 100% in the role of building and growing the brand and the business.
And that's
not everybody gets to that point. I'm just saying it could.
No, and that's like kind of the long-term goal. Actually, I told one of the court administrators at a recent bar event, I was like, I want to be ideally in the 10 attorney range over the next 5 or so years. He's like, well, that's pretty aggressive scaling. And in my opinion, it was like, well, no, because it was like, we go dual purpose. Like the firm, our approach is to provide everyday legal advice. It was like, take all of it. It kind of goes to my philosophy of cutting against the grain of being a lawyer. It was like, simplify everything, get it to the clients in a way that's understandable, because that's where they see value, not, hey, look at my big words. Hey, I went to school for a long time.
Sometimes you can do it so much that you intimidate them and make them feel inferior.
And then
I've learned that too.
That is one of the biggest comments that goes back to what I said in the intro and some of the intake. Having someone say, I didn't know working with an attorney can be this easy, should be my goal every time someone is in my office or on a call with me. Because if I don't make it easy for them to understand in a situation that's probably confusing, hectic, and stressful for them, I'm not actually helping them out. If I say a lot of things that are confusing but sound smart, they may only get more confused. And then that just makes the situation worse, because they're going to send 1,000 different questions that don't relate to what it is. They're going to do their own research. And then it's
exasperated situation.
You're just going to send the train off the tracks, and that's not the goal. So yeah, it's I get that. And looking at the back to the 10 attorneys thing, it was like, if our approach is to provide everyday legal advice, how do we get to the point that attorneys would want to work there or do that similar thing? It was like,
well, yeah, that's
about
part
how
of
do
your, that's the atmosphere that you've got to create to attract the same type of attorney as you.
How do I build a firm that attorneys want to work at? Because it was like, yeah, at the end of the day, making money is a great thing, but there's also like
being happy.
What do the people you work with look like? What do the clients you work with look like?
Do you enjoy working with the people that you work with, or is it more of, God, I got to go to work again today?
And I think every lawyer kind of has those moments. I mean, you always hear the horror stories. It's like you get the burnout, you get everything else. I think depending on the area you practice too, some of the stresses that show up on a regular basis really have an impact on how much you want to do. But then some of that is also, is that the right practice fit for you? Not just firm wise, but practice area.
But your morals,
because I know
right?
every now and then, if I cover for my partner who handles a lot of family law matters, I understand them. I know how they should work. They don't necessarily make me feel great in the process of doing them.
I'm sure.
So I feel extra drained
on the emotional,
just going to court for covering for her. Yeah, from an emotional mental side. And for me, I don't know that I could do that
day in,
day out.
Do you do the criminal defense, or is that her as well?
She handles that as well. So I mainly work with our small businesses,
bankruptcy
from startup. Yeah, catch some bankruptcy work, and then estate planning and the oil and gas. And it was an odd combination because I was at a large corporation before I started the firm 4 years ago.
As an attorney, obviously, right? You were at a large.
I was just doing land work. I wasn't doing any of the legal work. So I did land work. I bought oil and gas leases in southwestern Pennsylvania. So at a time period when the market for that was booming, lease prices were astronomically high, put a lot of money into individuals' pockets in certain counties. It was, you turn around, you look, you make someone a lot of money, and then you wonder, well, did they have any sort of planning on the back end?
Right.
They got a chance to have generational wealth. What happened? What might not have happened? And you see sometimes it was like, you knew what happened. They bought a couple Escalades and
blew their money.
Money went out the door. So part of my philosophy was, as I started practice, I know how to do oil and gas work, very familiar with the leasing side, property rights, mineral ownership. If I get those clients in the door,
just to be clear, it sounds like you understand it, both the commercial side of it as well as the residential side, affecting the people on the at the very end, if you will, the end user.
So it was trying to be very intentional in, if I'm working for someone and they get potential life-changing money, we should also offer some sort of estate planning that looks at what they're about to get holistically. And then having an MBA and some business experience, it was like bringing a different approach to just the normal transactional commercial side for business owners of saying, hey, I've ran teams, I've grown, I've done all of the things you're going to do with your business. So I can provide, here's what the law says, and here's what also the business side might say, and how they'll interact. But again, it goes back to, what do most business owners that start a business never think of? How they leave.
Right.
What is your exit plan? What's your strategy there? How do you take care of your family?
Most of the time, they don't even have an exit plan. And, quite frankly, if you're doing a full business outline for yourself, you should have some sort of if nothing else, a 1-sentence paragraph of an exit plan concept of, what do I do when one of these things happen that could present me exiting this, whether it's the sale of the company or, turning it over to someone else, whatever the case may be.
I actually worked that into new business formations of not only, hey, what's your 1-year goal, 3-year goal, 5-year goal? It was, what do you actually want to achieve with this? Are you going to grow the company and it dies with you? Okay, great. You probably will have a chance to make a good amount of money if you plan right, save right, you'll be fine. But what happens if, how you operate a business is going to change if you want to grow it and sell it in 3 years or 5 years, as opposed to, I want to grow this, bring people in, set solid transition plans for leadership, and then have something that lasts much longer than I do.
Something for
And
my
understanding
family or
that's
something for other people, whatever.
Yeah, and understanding that's a huge part, I think, of getting business
Planning.
owners off on the right foot, because
Yes.
you have to know where you're going to figure out how to get there. If you don't, you're just, I mean, how many businesses do we see that come out of the gate, have great ideas, great concepts, get traction in the early stages, and go away because they.
I'll throw this one out there just because it's one of the biggest ones I've seen as far as a highlighted one. They had an incredibly great concept. All the shows were good, but Quibi, unfortunately, was a perfect storm of launching at the exact wrong time due to the pandemic. Had they said, you know what, let's put the brakes on. And of course, they didn't want to do that because they have all this content that was already ready to go. Right. But I mean, quite frankly, you take that concept and redo it, I think even today, and do it properly, it will catch on, because I personally, everybody I talk to, love the ability that they could watch a piece of a show in the time it takes to catch the bus and go to work and not have to worry about, it was a great concept to give you something to do in those moments that you didn't want to do this with your phone and pop bubbles or whatever the hell else it is. Right? But execution was the flaw.
Timing, execution. And it also tells me, from a formation standpoint, what are sort of next steps on the legal horizon? Are you going to bring employees in soon? Are you selling products and have to collect sales tax and other things that it's one of those, I don't want to be the buzzkill that most attorneys are labeled, but you're trying to think about, hey, these are next steps I see. These are things I know that need to occur.
Insurance agents get the same bad rap because you're trying to plan for the inevitable, but nobody wants to look at that. And everybody, until we die, we all think we're not going to die. It's kind of this funny little thing,
that's part of the estate planning conundrum too.
Exactly.
Comes up is
like, it's going to happen, dude. You don't know how, you don't know when, but it's going to happen. So plan for it, man.
Absolutely. And it was like, look, I'm going to ask you questions that are going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, these are going to make you uncomfortable.
If we can plan your life, or plan your death, you can go live your life. And
people don't understand the amount of, I think I'm assuming that you might be a father at this point.
Not yet.
No. So I will tell you this, it accelerates and amplifies the need for planning ahead. And when I was doing insurance, and I, maybe you can take this as a nugget, I was not afraid. And I would tell them, like, this is not a scare tactic. You have children. If something happens to you prior to your ability or prior to them being able to take care of themselves, how would you feel about that if you could see it happening? Because here's the problem. If you die, you're not going to see it happening, but they're going to be going through horrible things.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a scare tactic. It's a reality of what can happen. And then I would try to show them, a testimonial of someone who was like, because you always have both, right? You have a testimonial of someone who didn't plan properly. And then you have a testimonial of someone who absolutely did everything almost, perfectly by the book. And their family is in a much better, or their business is in a much better place when the unfortunate does happen.
And the longer I do estate planning work, the more I'm convinced that people aren't necessarily afraid of dying. It's afraid of leaving everyone behind.
It's what's going to happen.
And not knowing how they're going to be taken care of. Yep. And it was just like you said, from the insurance side, if you do the right amount of planning and have your estate documents in order, have the proper life insurances or any coverage you can, and you invest the right way, you can make sure that everyone's taken care of.
It's one of the best wealth transfers in the country. It has not stopped being a great way of wealth transfer.
And in a way, it was like, it should give you more peace of mind, even though it's scary to think of, okay, we're going to ask about final disposition, but great. At the end of the day, we know we all die. That's the only thing we get to do in life is not to be completely morbid, but it's
no, it's not morbid. I
mean,
find
it's
the same
like
way.
you just got to stare it down and kind of say, okay, well, how do I plan for the people that I love, and then I'll just go about my life because it's going to happen one day.
To me, anything other than looking at it straight on is, that old adage comes into my mind, and that is, denial is not a river in Egypt. If you
That's
deny the
true.
fact that you're going to die, then
Yeah.
you are literally in a state that is just unrealistic with how life is going to play out. And I hate to bring it up but I'm sure that Anne Hesh was probably very properly taken care of and probably had all of her affairs. I would like to think so, just because typically when they have more money and they have more influence by other people, then they're counseled, right? But like, you never know when something like that's going to happen. She was having one of the greatest days of her life, and it ended tragically. Now, obviously there was other factors, and I'm not going to get into all that.
Yeah.
But my point is, you just never know. Tiger almost a year and a half ago almost took that deep in, right? So
Yeah.
it goes to show you that you have to, to me, the moment that you really come to terms with it, and I think also truly having kids, like I know it, for me, it was a much bigger deal because I was no longer living for myself, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you have to put something in place, minimal.
Yeah, no, and it's I think you get cost conscious people, and it was like, it's worth it. At the end of the day,
Right.
it's just like life insurance. It's worth it. Yeah, okay, it might cost a little bit now,
But they don't.
but
You have to
peace
point
of
out to them
mind.
how much. Sorry. Go
It's
ahead.
amazing that it's fine. It's like it's amazing how little it costs to actually buy peace of mind.
Right, and you're buying money at an exponential rate almost always. Like, not to sound rude, but the ones that do it and then 2 years later end up cashing in a whole life that they were paying $1 million policy, they're getting a world of wealth for very little money in.
Yeah,
And that's
no,
obviously
for
the
sure.
risk management of the insurance company. I understand all that stuff. I've studied it for years, but my whole point is, even if you were to pay in for the entire set of the policy, right?
Yeah,
And it matures at 100, 105, 110, whatever it is these days, depending on who you're with, and you get that money back, you're getting a heck of a lot more than you ever put in. And and at any point in between that, you pass or demise, then your family gets that. And anytime before that 100 is only better money. It's only a higher percentage of return, right? And I try to show that to people. I'm like, where else can you literally buy $100,000 for $10,000? Just tell me, where else can you do that?
Yeah, no, it's kind of mind blowing when you look at it from
Annuities are very, very similar, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, it's funny just to see, how people react to a lot of
Well,
those
it's
things.
taintedness, dude. We all have it. Lawyers, salesmen, insurance as a general, these service industries, right? Because sales is nothing more than a service. You're just,
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say it like that, but to me, it's nothing more than a service because of the way that I look at it, right? Just my point of view. And because you're servicing people. And if you are a good salesman, then I refer to those people as as a people swader versus a me manipulator. Because if you're manipulating, you're doing it 100% for yourself, right? But if you're people
Yeah.
swaying or persuading, you're usually doing it for the best of the person or business, whatever the case may be on the other side. And that's why I say I consider sales a service. It's my service to show them this product, this service, and then help them decide and decipher if it's truly worthy and will work for them. So when I, excuse me, when I look at it that way, and you see other people that just really don't take it that way, it becomes more about purely for the money. And I think any business that's starting also, by the way, purely for ROI sake, I think has the wrong start. Yes, you want to make money. That is the end goal on all of it in one form or fashion. But I think you have to look at, how am I going to make money? And most of us have principles and morals, right? So we want to try to do something that is somehow beneficial to somebody in some way. At least that's, I'm not a scammer, and I don't think you are either. So
No, I mean, I could 100% agree with that. I remember telling one client one time, I forget how it came up. It was right around the fee conversation, and multiple parties involved, and how will the other people get paid? How will the other attorneys get paid? And it may be just because I was young. a couple years younger and didn't look at things quite the same, but I think it's still the same today. It was like, I really don't care about making money. I care about doing the work,
The money
the
will
right
come.
way.
That's Zig Ziglar
If you do
taught
the
us that.
work, do the right things and do them repeatedly, everything else will take care of itself. You're going to
Amen.
start attracting it. So it was like, stop
And
worrying
you attract
about
what you put out. So if you're only putting out, I'm doing
I
this
need money.
for
Yeah.
this, right? If you put out, I'm only in it for money, then you're going to get people who are coming to you who are only in things for money, and you're gonna, it's not going to be, it's going to be ugly, you know. And I've watched that, I've learned it, I've lived it, because I'll just say I haven't always had the same outlook. I was young and dumb, and we know the rest of it, and was very aggressive, and it was all about the money for many years. So
and it it may be a slower approach than what most people would like to see, but it goes back to kind of like that Warren Buffett saying of what the stock market is. On a day-to-day basis, it's a voting machine, but on a long-term basis, it's a weighing machine. So it was like, would you rather vote a lot or weigh a lot at the end of your career? Like I'm leaning toward hopefully weighing a lot at the end and not just in physical form. So, yeah, it is amazing though about what you put out to what you attract 100%. So it was, trying to stick to that all the time
it's not easy.
When you first start a business is terrifying, because I remember early on it was like taking work because you needed work because you have to pay the bill.
Just had the conversation. I have to interrupt you. You're gonna love this. Just hear me out, Brocton. Just this morning, I had a conversation with a guy. We said one of the best things you can learn is that it is a sales table that you're at. They're selling you and you're selling them. And it's the hardest thing when you want the money to go, you know what? I know that you're not a good fit. You're going to be a problem. You're going to cost me more money on the long run than you're bringing into my firm. And we just need to let this go. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn, to be able to do it and say, you're not good for this company. I see your fat wallet. You got 100, you got 1 million. I don't want it because I don't want what comes with it.
And that's exactly where I was going. It was like learning those hard lessons. No, it's perfect. But it was like learning the lesson the hard way, that saying no will make you more money than saying yes to every bit of money that walked in the door. And it kind of reminded me of, I think it was a professor I had in law school, maybe in professional responsibility, that he was like, all lawyers remember that need to remember you're not a bus. It's like, you don't have to pick everyone up that's at your bus stop.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's like, until I started saying no, though, it was, you get in that mentality of got to make money. I'm a bus.
Right.
Someone's
I'll
here.
I'll take anything that walks in the door that has money in their hand to pay me.
What do they call those? What do they call them? Door lawyers?
Yeah.
Anything that walks in the door, you just take it. And
when you're fresh, though, I can assume that it's extremely attractive to do that, because you feel productive and you feel like you're moving forward. But it's many times, maybe only 3, sometimes 6, maybe a year later, 6 months, a year later, that you realize that a lot of what you did was painful and causing you more time, more effort, more money. And that's when I think that's when the light bulb goes off, and you're like, maybe I can start sensing these dudes out, or these chicks out, or these businesses out, and just be like, you know what? You're really nice. I would love to take your money, but you're probably going to do better somewhere else.
And that was right around the time in that 6 month to a year window, I think, that it did click for me. And it was back to, I guess, had I stuck to just do the right things the right way, you end up bringing in the right clients. But it was hey, you've got to get money in the door. And it was, I definitely would say it slowed, looking back at it, it slowed progress, because.
Would you say that was your biggest challenge with the firm?
Getting off the ground? Yeah.
Well, as far as getting it off the ground, would you say the biggest challenge was learning to say no to a case that was potentially hazardous to you?
Absolutely. And it's still, I think you constantly adjust what your red flags look like.
Oh yeah, no, you constantly
in the intake
my
process.
List it started out like this, brother. Now I got a list to the ground. Like, are you doing that? No. Flags all over the place, man.
And it was, and some of that I think has, for me, it's been trying to get as quick a connection as you can with the client.
Learn them. Yes.
to be able to get the trust, to learn them, to say, it was like, are they being honest and open with me? Because that's
feeling
been
the authenticity from them that I am trying to give to them?
Absolutely. Because that is one of those, there's no worse feeling than walking into a deposition and all of a sudden it's just like a bomb goes off because your client starts answering things in a complete opposite way than what they've told
right.
you, what you
try
might
to get
have
the
filed in
stapler
a
over to their mouth, right? Like, shut up.
and you're, the panic sets in because it was like the other lawyer may be asking great questions that you can't really object to because all we can object to is form here. And you just know it hurts. And that was, having that happen was a good time for me to really step back and look at.
But it taught you a lot,
what was said, like, what was said in early questioning and early interviews. What can I ask differently?
Right. What can I add to my process?
To understand earlier in the process what might be going on, because you may have something that looks one way from what the client says. You can do a reasonable amount of investigation. It still looks that way. But when you dig just a little bit deeper and you get further into the process, it might not be, but it was like, how do we cram that down and have that happen sooner? Because, it's not a good way to keep your business growing, because eventually doing that will prevent, I think, that process of becoming jaded of, oh, hey, every client is going to only tell me what they want.
Right. You got to know.
We're going to get an amount of work in, and then they're going to, at some point, it's going to become a train wreck. And but it's how do you learn that in a rapid way? And then I guess right now, as we start to grow, it was like, how do you get that to other people we bring in? Like, hey, look, these things are going to happen, especially if you're bringing younger attorneys in. They're going to be, they want to bring business in. You're like, look, hey, these things, if you can ask these questions and get good answers, you're probably got a good case. If you get weird answers and you
see horns growing out of his head, let me just say
if everything the potential client's ever done was right, and everything that anyone on the other side's done has screwed them over, it's probably a good sign there's a lot more going on than what they're letting on.
Two sides to
ask a couple more questions, because it was like the other side of the story is the exact same, I'm sure. Very rarely do you have someone that comes in and is like, I screwed this, and this up. But the other side screwed just as much, if not more up. What can you do with it? It's always, well, the other side, they took everything from me. They did something terrible.
And I did nothing wrong.
And I need you to get a gajillion dollars from them. And you're like, okay, well, what actually happened? And again, you get the same story and you start going through the process, you get other parties involved, and it morphs nonstop. You're like, oh, how did I end up here again?
That's funny, because I find that to go into the it's something that I constantly try to tell to my boys, right? And what I mean by that is, if you take the philosophy of, if I'm not the problem, there is no solution, and then and you really have to do that when you're talking to someone else about a problem you're having, and be like, look, they did this, I did this, I am as much, because I learned that a long time ago. It takes two to fight. It really does. It is a simple concept, because if one person is fighting, the other person's just standing there, that's not a fight. Someone's getting their butt kicked, period. Right.
Absolutely.
To take it to a different place. Beyond that too, is that, lost my train of thought there. Oh goodness. It happens. You get 50 and sometimes the thoughts just go. I was going to try to come back around to the fact that if you're truly looking at yourself, then you understand you can only control yourself. But if you've had a problem with someone and there was a dispute, yes, you still have, that was what it was. There's three truths, right? There's your truth, there's the other side truth, and then there's the truth in the middle. If you try to come to somebody and tell them the truth in the middle from the beginning, particularly someone in your position where you're fighting for them, you're going to have a much better chance at representing them and fighting them if you know the defects and the shortcomings of the person you're representing, because we all have them. And I think anybody that tries to act like, any situation that has become the need for litigation, there is fault on both sides. Because if you have to get litigation, that means you didn't react well, possibly. If you're the one, right, that says they're the victim, then you probably didn't react to this accordingly to be able to get the right response. Because most of the time, I feel like if you talk it out and communicate, you don't need an attorney until you need an attorney, right? Like, and that's when there's no more communication. When you can't make this happen and it's just hitting, then you need an attorney.
Absolutely. And back to the communication side, it's funny when potential clients might tell you, they're like, I hate to bother you with this, or it was like, I'm sure this sounds terrible. And outside of forming new businesses or people that are really excited to do estate plans, most of the people that call our office are not calling because everything's going great.
Right.
We already know. It was like, it's a sad truth, but it's a baseline of there's a certain amount of awful that you're bringing to this phone call and to this conversation. What that looks like and how I help you is determined by what you answer, what's going on, and what facts come out. It was like, that is true. But it's surprising. I think the number of people are like, oh, I hate to get attorneys involved, or I've never needed an attorney before. It was like, well, no, you don't until you actually do
need one. Yep.
And if you call, odds are you probably need one because something has happened that you can't address on your own. Absolutely. And I think that's, for me, that's usually step one, especially when people call in town panicked, is to let them know that, you hear and understand that, and that it's awful, but like, start telling me what the awful is so that we can address it together. Because if not, they don't want to tell you because they're like, oh, it might be embarrassing. Well, we're going to find out anyway. We're going to find out anyway. I don't really care. Look, I'm not here to judge you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here to take your side. I have to know the nitty gritty though. I have to.
Tell me what's going on so that I can help you. Because if not, you're going to give me bits and pieces. Something really odd's going to happen, and you're probably going to end up more embarrassed than what you are when you first showed up. But if we can get that out of the way now, we can start moving forward and figure out what actual reasonable solutions look like.
I imagine.
And I think that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I say, and then back to that reasonable solutions. I think that's another thing outside of helping them get away from the stigma of that is, what is an actual resolution? Too many people, I think, by the time they get to the point they need an attorney, they're so focused on winning. And it's, what does winning mean? What does winning mean to you? Because resolving a matter and spending less money on me or my partner is more important, at least to me, than just getting an outright win. Because you may get a win at a judgment or in some sort of contract negotiation. You may get all the terms you want, but then the other side, especially if it's a contract and you've got to perform on it for the next year, 2 years, however long the term is, well, they don't want to perform. They don't want to do anything because they feel like you tried to get the best of them no matter what. There was no sort of compromise. So I'm really big on telling clients that it was like a great resolution is one where both sides walk away.
Yes.
Satisfied, but maybe not happy.
But lost something, a true compromise. Both lose, both win. That way, like you say, the post performance of a compromising resolution is drastically different than one where there was a judgment and somebody clearly lost their ass and someone clearly won that case. Because like you said, particularly if they're, if it's something that they have to work the next 3 years in order to pay back or do back or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing it. Let's face it. They are clearly doing it begrudgingly. They're not in there with a smile like, thanks, Jim, for freaking suing me. And,
Absolutely. And it was, how much sometimes you have to lay down, and it was like, how much does a win cost?
Right. What is the
Because
actual cost of the win beyond my financials, excuse me.
how much, yeah, it was like, one, how much is in it based on what you're going to pay to get that win. So can we get a resolution before that? Because if you're owed 100 grand and it costs 200 to get it, you're still out 100 grand. You're in a work.
Why
You're in the
I would
exact
have
same
rather just
spot.
taken the original loss if I know that's how it's going to end up.
And,
I'm going to walk away.
and trying to get that, it was like, if they offer anything, hey, here's that sort of back to the business side. It was like, what's the cost benefit analysis? What's your risk analysis? Juries are wildly unpredictable. So
Wildly, especially if you have 12. Like the more you add, then the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Variables that you add, period. You have, each person thinking differently, and you never know what one of them might say that can infect that whole group, and then they all go against you. And you're like,
you go in with something you think's a slam dunk case, and you get the classic, here's some nominal damages. Oh, great. My client spent what to get $1?
right.
That, so I think that has been a big focus of mine, because it goes back to that focus on serving and providing value. Because
I love that approach, by the way.
Without it, you can just, it's great to have clients that want to take things a distance, and sometimes you just have to, because you've got to do what's right.
Right. It is what it is.
But otherwise, there's always somewhere in the middle, and the approach should always be, how do I add value to this situation, not how do I add value to me? And I think we kind of discussed that earlier on certain books of what are we in it for? And it was, if you can add value somewhere, it'll keep adding value down the line for that potential client. So I think it's hard to quantify that though, too, because it was like, what does value look like?
It's hard to quantify. It's also hard to teach someone how to think in those terms, if you will.
Yeah. And I'd say that's probably something that was a shift much later than I don't have to pick every client up that comes in the door.
Well, you get rid of a lot of those problems when you don't take every single client that walks through.
Yeah. And then it was like, then how do I actually create value? Because otherwise, you might grab some work it was like quick money, and you feel like you're just generating documents. And well, LegalZoom can do that now. Rocket Lawyer, all of these places that I think a lot of attorneys feel like they have to compete with. But at the end of the day, what's the actual, when people call an attorney, yeah, they could do it there. But when they contact an attorney, what are they doing that for? So it was like trying to get behind and understand the why of what they're in it for, because they may know enough to create an issue for themselves down the road, or they may, online documents may be everything they need, and that's a perfect solution for a lot of people. But there are people that sometimes have more going on behind the scenes, understanding that.
Yeah, if you have so much as one variable that is not part of the standard, then it's really best to, if nothing else, at least get some legal advice, and then take that and change, because there is a certain amount of editing you can do to these documents online, right? They're not completely just the way they are.
Yeah, but here's your name. Where do you want stuff to go?
Right.
Or what's the address? Yeah, no, and that's 100% true. But for me, I think a lot of time lately has been trying to spent figuring out what's the why for most people, and then how do you add value to that? And if you can't, maybe you shouldn't take the work.
Absolutely. And back to it, I'll end it with that, but it's knowing that moment. That's, and I think you said it earlier, maybe it was the guy I spoke to this morning, Nels, but I believe that, quite frankly, our filters and you did say it too, but our filters and our awareness of that just increasingly becomes better. And some people might say you're judging a deal. No, I never judge a deal until I've asked so many questions that I've heard the answers that allow me to judge this in front of me and go, yes, this is good for the company, or no, it's not. But I don't make a snap judgment. But at some point you have to judge. You do have to. So if they, for people that say you're judging, I'm judging it for the best scenario for both sides, because if they're not good for me, then I'm not going to be good for them either. And they really need to find their solution somewhere else.
Absolutely. It's something that takes time and a significant amount of practice. I mean, it's,
and
I'm
like
not
you say,
going to
continually
be
altering it, adding to, and sometimes you may even take some things away, right? You might I don't need to use this filter anymore.
No, absolutely. It was like, I know I'm not the lawyer I was 4 years ago, and I'll be a different lawyer next year, hopefully better.
Right.
But if you're not trying to make some of those changes, you're just becoming a robot. Stagnant. It was like people hire us because we're people. We're supposed to understand. We're supposed to listen and solve problems, and that's pretty much it.
Well, you said it earlier, and I'll just come back to it, and then I'm gonna give my introduction that I would normally do at the end, just so they can take it, cut it, and put it at the front. But we obviously, and I'll leave this in there, but we went off rails, but the conversation was great, so I didn't want to sit and interrupt it with the questions that I had planned. I threw a couple in there, but you answered a lot of it anyway, just in talking to me. And really, the philosophies were, I think, more important for today's podcast. But to come back to the point I was going to make is, one of the things that cop cars, and to me, cops and lawyers are very much hand in hand the same kind of person, right? One enforces the law, one knows the law, right? That's the difference to me, really. Okay, one is an enforcer, and one is the book guy in the back that says, okay, what you're doing is right or wrong, period. Having said that, cops, it used to be that it was on every cop car in America, right? To serve and to protect. And many cop cars throughout the country, throughout cities, states, and throughout the entire country have lost that. It's not on all the cop cars the way it used to be. And to me, I think one of the philosophies that definitely is hit in the bar when you take it, right? And you know this because you've taken the bar. It really is to serve these people, right? You're their counsel and you're their representation. That is, in essence, 100% serving them. They pay you to represent their needs, their wants, whatever the case may be. And so I just want to give kudos to it, because I love the fact that you're trying to bring back what to me is ultimately the real role and why attorneys even came about. And that was, Jerry Seinfeld makes a funny joke about it, but the attorneys are the guys that play the board games that actually took the time to read every freaking rule before they play. That's it. They're like, I want to read all this and know how to play this game, because life is nothing more than a game, and it's nothing more than a game when you're in these courtrooms.
And I think I think something you said with the service side of, like, to serve and protect, it was on all of the bar certificates from anywhere, from, the one hanging on my wall from the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. It has attorney and counselor. It was like, how often do we ditch the counselor side and focus on the attorney side? It was, it's a dual mandate. You have to, and counsel doesn't just mean, hey, give advice on any situation. A lot of it is listening, digesting, and understanding the situation.
Yes.
And, that's, if you can keep both parts together all the time, you're going to actually serve better, I think.
Oh, you're going to be a much better attorney, because your empathy and your authenticity will come through to whoever you're dealing with, right? Because I've learned that the biggest thing you should do when you ask a question is actually listen. I know that sounds like it's common sense, but there's so many attorneys, salespeople, insurance, whatever you want to call, that ask a question, and then they don't listen entirely to all the answer. They hear something, and many times they try to come back. I'm guilty of it myself all the time, where, I hear something and I move on it. But the more I learn to sit back, digest, and let them regurgitate everything they want to tell you from that question, you'll usually get 2 or 3 other great questions to ask from it. Number one, and the insight is invaluable when you're dealing with them in whatever situation, whether you're trying to sell them, represent them, whatever the case may be.
It's actually, it's pretty ironic that you just said that, because most of my consults now, when I start after the general intro, is tell me what you have going on.
Right.
And when you're done, it's it's that chance to stop and listen
Truly listen.
and try to understand, because I can always go back and ask questions of something that I thought I heard before instead of stopping them, but let them get everything out so they're heard.
And I would imagine.
Let them understand that they're heard, and then start from there, because that'll direct the questions I actually need to ask to understand. Because if I try to automatically assume what I think's going on, I'm going to lead their conversation.
Exactly.
And it's going to be bad, instead of, hey, give everything that's going on. Let's see what's happening.
That's what I call controlling a conversation, but allowing them to lead where it goes. The attorney in this case, you control where the conversation goes, but they lead you down the informational road that you are trying to obtain.
Yeah.
Right. And if you do that properly, they also feel I have found that if you do that properly, they feel very respected, because they feel heard. I hear all the time when people deal with me, particularly, that they're like, you feel very authentic. I really believe like you listen, because one of the things I try to do when I listen to is repeat some of what they said right back to them to let them know I heard it. This is your problem. This is the pain you're having. This is how we can fix it.
Or is it, did I hear this correctly? It's this, like, what does that, what does that mean?
If you heard one thing, then you expand on, like, when you say this, John, what do you really mean? Can you tell me? Because I'll give you just a quick example, and I know you've heard this one probably in your dealings through life. But if you ever ask somebody why they're doing something, almost the first answer in any freaking situation in this day and age is for the money, right? Why are they doing it? Oh, well, I need this for the money. Well, when anybody ever tells me that, I'm like, okay, my first initial question is, number one, that's what everybody, I'll literally say this to her, like, that's what everybody tells me. Let me ask you, what is your money for? By the way, the very first thing that they say is inevitably not still the true pain. And what I mean by that is, just a quick example, one of my favorites that I dealt with when I was training IT guys, and this is a real call, but I was like, so he's like, I need $10,000 more, a year. And I was like, why is that? He's like, well, I want to put an addition onto the room. Why are you putting that addition on? Well, I have somebody that's going to be who's going to be living with you, bro? My mother-in-law. Boom. He does not want to see this woman, and he needs $10,000 a year extra to make sure that she has a in-law room where she has everything she needs. That's the pain. Yeah. It's not the money. It's that I don't want to deal with that woman. It's not. You see what I mean? It's not even the room.
It goes back to that why, and it was like trying to figure that out sometimes takes a little bit of work and finesse to pull out. But once you get it, it should direct everything you do after that, because at the end of the day, the procedure for most things inside of the law are the same. Well, they're always the same. The actions are similar because the law is the same. The facts always change, but it was what's driving the facts that then filter back to the other two parts that dictate how work's done.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, man, I got to tell you, we could honestly sit here and probably go on for all. It seems like our philosophies are very, very similar. Yeah. I know one thing, and I just want to touch back on it too, because you said it, and I meant to say, I'm very much a Zig Ziglar kind of guy. I pride myself on maybe even one day being another type of Zig Ziglar, motivational, and teach people the real way to sell. But there's two things that you said that really stand out to me that are very much Zig's types of philosophies as well that I've taken, further in my own career. But that is, if you're doing it for everything but the money will absolutely come. It will, because if you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it typically for righteous reasons. And the universe, God, karma, whatever you want to call it, is going to bring it back to you. You're not going to be that good guy and truly be doing it for good reasons, and the world continue to crap on you. It just does not happen. It might for a while. Sometimes you have karma you have to pay back, right? But the other thing, but I'll end it with this, because it all kind of boils back to this. Actions, I think, speak louder than the words. And when you're an attorney and you're listening, or you're a salesman and you're listening, those little actions, those little things really show them that you care.
Yeah.
They really point it out. That's why I say they'll give you everything that you need to know. If you just ask the questions and listen, you will get every piece of information that you need. And then you can either truly help them or make that decision like we talked about, that I am not the right fit for you and you're not going to find the help that you need here.
No, absolutely. I agree.
So we went a little off track this week, folks, but please know that I go with what feels great. And quite frankly, talking with Brocton today had a lot of good things that I prefer to talk about than following the normal measures. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.